What if you could sit down once a week with a colleague who's a flat-out warrior? This colleague wasn't a stud in dental school. He struggled. He returned to practice in his hometown, an area once labeled by USA Today as the second worst place to live economically in the United States. And this very same colleague went on to establish an historically successful general practice known worldwide. What if you knew someone that wanted to take you by the hand and show you everything you need to know, from treatment planning to leadership, to maximizing your journey in dentistry, or just life? You ready to be inspired? Welcome to the Lionhearted.
Hi everyone, it's Dr. Steve Rasner, and welcome back to the Lionhearted Dental Podcast. You know, tonight's kind of a small historic moment in my podcast history because I've never had a guest. And most of you I know are in your car or at the gym and you don't see me anyway, but you know that I've talked about for the last year off and on having Michele, my 42-year, which I'm sure she loves me saying, new patient coordinator, financial coordinator, marketer, everything. And you have us tonight. So let me first say, she's next to me. If you're watching, let me just say, welcome, Michele, to the Lionhearted Dental Podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Rasner. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, isn't that great? Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't say this to you. We prepared for like 2 seconds. And a lot of times I go into side talks and stuff. And look, you may not like this when I say this to you, but I haven't done any of these with anybody yet. And so when Michele goes, thank you, Dr. Rasner, think about that for a minute. I've worked with her for 42 years. I've known her since I was 15.
14. 13. Remember your bar mitzvah.
There you go. So she called me doctor. Why? Why would I do that? And, you know, she certainly knows on the inside. She can call me Steve if she wants to. But I have found over the years that, especially when you go, Michele was my first employee, literally my first employee. Mm-hmm. And when you go from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10, it's easier for leadership. It's easier to be the boss if there's a line there. And some of you may disagree with me and think that calling your doctor has nothing to do with anything. It's worked pretty nicely for me. We can go out, and we've been out a zillion times, of course, over these years, mm-hmm. and it's totally comfortable. And we spent New Year's Eve together mm-hmm. with our significant others for many, many, many years. It just isn't that weird to
He's
me.
He's just trying to tell you that we're friends outside the office.
I know, but you know, you call me doctor in the office, and you call me doctor outside the office, actually. But anyway, that's not why you tuned in. You tuned in because I have made it such a point about the importance of case acceptance. I mean, it's silly. It's not up for debate. I mean, obviously, it determines everything about what you do professionally and to some degree personally in your life. If you come into your office all week and you're doing one-tooth dentistry with one crown here and one crown there, and you have an insurance-driven practice, that's not very fulfilling. And it doesn't make you a happy doctor, would be my opinion. So everything counts from case acceptance. Guess what? Case acceptance starts with your marketing. And at some point, whether you use radio like we do, or you use hard press like a newspaper, somebody you hope is going to pick up the phone and call. And that's where the screen begins. So why don't you tell them, try to picture when you're on the phone, mm-hmm. which you do this for us. Listen, I've told you this too. I've got 18 to 20 employees. There's only one person I'm going to really trust and allow to take somebody on a new patient call, because it's that critical, in my opinion.
Yes. So basically the screen is for the doctor's advantage and the patient's advantage, because when the patient calls, typically in our office, because of our marketing, we get a lot of fearful patients that call and obviously have let things go and need more than they think they need. So when I take the call, I introduce myself and I start taking their information, their personal information, their insurance information, and then I start to kind of relate to the patient. I ask them if they have fear issues. They usually know that Dr. Rasner is a sedation dentist, and that's one of the reasons they've called. And so the patient may have called because all these years they were fearful of the dentist. They've avoided the dentist for 5+ years, or even more than that. And it's because money or fear. That's what I think it is, money or fear. Because we have patients that come to us every 6 months that don't have these issues. But when you get a new patient that's fearful or not, they have one problem. The screen is very important because you can let the patient know through your discussion that they have more needs than they know they have. So I go through a series of questions. Once I take their personal information, then I say, okay, I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your mouth so we know what we have going in. And they're fine with that.
So let me just for a second, because a lot of times you'll hear me say, I'll walk. I remember walking past you in my career, and I think you'd be on the phone with your husband, and you're there or you're somebody casual. You're laughing and giggling, which I'm okay with also, but.
Well, that's because a lot of times when I'm talking to them, we can relate to certain things.
So when they first call you, because, a lot of people listening to us right now have somebody that's been in place for maybe, I don't know, a month to 6 months, a year, and they're not sure if they have the right person.
Right.
So you're going to get calls tomorrow. Somebody's going to call you new. And by the way, the other girls take the initial call almost 100% of the time. And everybody knows that Michelle's referred to as our new patient coordinator. And if she's tied up, we will usually, I hear them say, would it be okay if our new patient coordinator, Michele, because she's the one dedicated to this position, and she is, can get back to you within 30 minutes. And I don't ever remember anybody ever saying no to that.
Right.
So they call you. How do you warm up so quick? I mean, I've never listened to you other than your end of it. What's going on in that what makes you so connected to them so quickly?
You taught me a long time ago to be a chameleon and to be able to relate to people. So I try to get into that mode where they are, and I try to relate to them. So I do so, but first of all, if I get their personal information, I find out that they live near me or someone I know.
I knew you were going to say this.
It's
I want you to
just
go with
personal.
this. Yes.
So, and then at other times I always ask how you found us. You have to find out where they heard about you, because we send out thank you gift cards for patients that refer patients to us. And we also track our marketing that way, because we have several sources and we like to know where they're coming from and how successful those sources are. So I ask how they heard about us, and if they tell me, oh, my uncle comes to you, then I can say, oh, he's such a great guy, or whatever, whatever I can personally tie into the conversation.
Yeah. And some of them listening right now, I hope not, might be saying, oh, isn't that a HIPAA thing? And they...
Not if they tell me their uncle sent them, right?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
we're trying to be as HIPAA compliant as...
I mean, the patient never says, how dare you ask me that?
Yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make for you, if you have a robot, and I don't want to keep interrupting Michele, but, I get to do these with you every week. So it's like talking in the mirror to me. And I want them to get the most of you.
Right.
And I hear you, and I know how good you are.
Thank you.
So you don't know the half of it. Wait till we get to and there's going to be other podcasts, because I told you last week it might take 2. I think it's going to take 3 or 4, because there's the money is a big subject many of you want to hear about, and we know this. How do you get paid up front? Case presentation. Michele going in there after myself, and I set her up for success. And that's your job, Doc. And that kind of relates to what I just started to say. If you answer that phone like a robot, we're fee for service here. From the very first phone call, they got to feel that this place is different. Yeah. This place is better. Not a robot on the phone. I'm sorry.
No.
Go.
So, again, to answer your question, I try to get personal with them. I try to make them feel welcomed and comfortable. It may be a 5-minute conversation. It could be 10 minutes. But
As part of the whole
as
conversation.
part of the whole conversation.
And not the whole thing doesn't take 5 or 10 minutes.
Sometimes I can have a 10-minute phone call.
Oh, I know.
Patient.
I mean, you've told me.
Yeah.
You've told me it's longer.
It can be.
I don't care how long it takes.
Yeah. And the patient usually, unless I get a driver that doesn't really want to talk too much, I still can get information from them. So
What did you call that person?
There's several personality types: drivers,
You love that?
relators, socializers, and
Does your new patient coordinator know this? You hear what she's saying? She just rolls with it because she's done it for so long.
and you can just pick it out of their voice if you talk. When you're gathering the information, just name, address, insurance. You can pick out all kinds of little things just by talking to them. So, as I started to say, the patient is calling you now after years of fear, usually, or maybe they had a bad experience at another dental office. But in any case, they've got an issue, usually a broken tooth, a toothache, swelling. They need to see a dentist. So they only think they have one issue. So when you're on the phone with them, the best thing for the doctor and the patient is for us to know going in what their issues are. So I start by saying, I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes about your mouth before we make your appointment.
But you're putting in, at first, dry information. Like, you got to ask.
Dry information is right. And then when I collect all that information, I have everything. I say, okay, Mrs. Jones, now we're going to talk just a little bit about your mouth. I use the word mouth. And then I will be happy to make your appointment for you. So what you're doing is you're letting the patient know by questioning them that they do have other issues other than that one tooth they called about. So the first thing I ask them is, what's your chief complaint? What's going on with you today? Okay, I've got a toothache. Lower left, a little bit of swelling, started last week. Okay, and do you have any missing teeth? Yes, I had one extracted on the upper left a few years ago. And do your gums ever bleed when you brush your floss? Yeah, once in a while, occasionally, or yeah, they definitely do. I get all different answers. But this is feeding information into them that, yeah, I do have dental issues. Other than this one.
I didn't hear what you said. Did you ask them? I know you do. Last time you saw a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay, yes, the last time you were seen by a dentist.
And see, that's important, guys, because, I want to shut up, but I don't want Michelle to miss anything for you. And I know she does this. Because she's right. Most people that call you up are thinking about the tooth that broke last night at dinner or the weekend. They're not thinking about, well, I haven't been to a dentist in 4 years. And let's be honest, a lot of new patients that come to us, and remember something, we don't get 40 new patients a month, or we certainly don't get way more than that. And we certainly don't get quality, which is what this is all about. That is why you're screening, which Michelle will get to. Mm-hmm. If you're going to get somebody, which I'm sure you're going to talk about, this is what the first visit is going to be. Mm-hmm. This is what's going to happen at the first visit, mm-hmm. and all those things I talk about. Mm-hmm. Some people will either opt out or you refer them. See, you only have 8 hours a day or however many hours you guys work. And part of those hours are new patient exams. Mm-hmm. And it is frustrating to everyone. If it's never happened to you, it's going to happen. When your hygienist walks in, I remember these days? I remember sitting right there or in Bridgeton, mm-hmm. and having a hygienist walk and say, what do you want me to do, Doc? They won't let me take any x-rays.
Yeah, that still happens.
Right?
They get selective amnesia sometimes from the initial phone call. Not rare. I would say very rare. But they just have to have me come back and explain again.
Okay.
So, yes, the quality of the patient is very important, because if the patient really only wants one tooth dentistry, right, then I can refer them sometimes to our associate, because our associate, that's one of the reasons that we have our associate.
Well, we have 2 offices, mm-hmm. and some of you have 2 offices, and you got to decide what kind of philosophy of care you want. Michelle's not going to put a patient on me, is for sure. I don't even know if that's English. She's not going to put a patient on my schedule that won't let me. You're not going to put a patient in our system that won't allow us to do a full exam, that's
No,
for sure.
no.
And she's getting this by asking him information. So I'm sorry.
So if a patient says to me, well, I don't think I need a full set of x-rays, I say, well, Dr. Rasner actually considers it malpractice not to have that full set of x-rays because he can see things through the x-ray that he wouldn't see clinically. Maybe an abscess. And that's happened many times. I'm sure it happens to everyone out there. So yeah, most of them are amenable to it. They have no problem with it. And even if you don't have two offices, if you have an associate that you can field that patient to, and you don't want to waste your main doctor's time, you can do that. And we just approach that differently. And sometimes we refer them to our local oral surgeons or endodontists if that's really all they're interested in. But usually we can capture the patient either with Dr. Rasner or with another one of our associates, either here or in another office. Like when he's away, I can bring in other new patients on the associates that I feel are more qualified for them.
So I always tell them there's like I forget what I say, 4 parts to the screen. You know, and you said a couple of them, you hit on it.
Right.
How would you think the health of your gums are? And do you have any missing teeth?
Broken teeth, pain. How do you like your smile?
Okay.
A lot of times they say, well, it could be better. And I say, in what way? They'll either tell me it could be whiter or I have some crowding. And they give me all the information very willingly. You know, they want help. They do want help. And usually at the end of the conversation, they are very comfortable and feel better about coming in because you're showing empathy to them.
Yeah, and again, a couple of things that Michele has said that are critical here is, you know, we market for fearful patients. That's I've told you it's the number 1 return on any marketing investment you ever make. No matter what country you're listening to me from right now, or what part of that country, or what city in the United States, I am telling you, I never forget why I say this, but I remember hearing a guy say that he never knew there were so many red Corvettes. I drive a 2007 Lexus, so don't take this wrong. I'm like, you know, a soccer mom car. But he never knew there were so many red Corvettes until he bought a red Corvette.
Until he had one.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you may not think in Birmingham, Alabama, or wherever in California or Montana that there's not a big fearful population. Trust us. There's a big fearful population in your community. And when you market to that, they're going to call you. And that helps her tremendously. Because if somebody calls you, help me with this when I say this, and the first thing out of their mouth, which I'm sure it often is, you know, how did you hear about us? Because that's what you say.
Right.
Well, you know, I see your marketing a lot, but I'm scared to death, and I know that's what you guys do.
Yeah.
Right? Starts up, and what it does for Michele is because, look, every single implant I do doesn't work, no more than yours does. But I will tell you, every sedation patient with an incredibly low percentage that I can't even give you, I'm talking under 1%. I mean, two a year that for some reason it doesn't work, or they need IV. She knows that. And she sees that.
It's nothing for me to go down the hallway during a busy day and hear people snoring.
Right. Yeah, so that's easy for your new patient coordinator to take off with that. Okay, so that's the screen. You want to recapitulate for us?
Yeah, basically what you're doing is you're welcoming the patient to the practice. You're obtaining their information so that you can gather insurance if they have it. If they don't have insurance, I always quote them for the consultation, which includes a comprehensive exam and a full set of x-rays with every new patient. And then you're going through the process of finding out what's going on with their mouth and helping them to understand through your conversation that there are other things going on. And it's very important, and we haven't brought this up yet, that if you have a married person, that they bring their spouse with them.
So how do you get them to do that?
We just found that out today. We had a patient today that didn't bring their spouse and couldn't accept because the patient was too busy. But that normally does not happen. What I do is say, Mrs. Jones, your consultation is going to be on such and such a date, but I need to make sure that you can bring your spouse with you. I said, Dr. Rasner is very comfortable.
Now, don't they freak out when you say that?
No.
Somebody's listening here saying, are you kidding me?
No. I tell them the reason why it's so important and why Dr. Rasner really likes to have that happen is because he's going to, or she, either one, will be able to sit there in the operatory after your x-rays are taken and listen to everything Dr. Rasner tells you and recommends, because he's very thorough. And we don't want you to get all that information and go home and have to try to explain that to him, because he'll never understand, or she'll never understand, what Dr. Rasner told you in depth. So,
and again, I don't mean to cut you off, and I'm not, but you're hitting me with stuff that you're making me think of that I want them to hear.
Yeah.
And that is, see guys, if you're running an insurance-driven practice, and some of you are, and it's okay, so do we. We did that. We've been together a long time. I don't remember exactly when we switched over. But when you're doing that, now you probably don't need the spouse there for a crown or two decision. But when you run a practice, which you just assume this, because you've done it for so long, and that they don't all do this, that this is a comprehensive care practice. So that spouse is in the room because I am talking about stuff that most of the preceding dentists have never talked about.
exactly.
You
And
know?
they tell me that. Wow, I've never heard anything that thorough during a dental visit. And they like it. They do. They want to know.
And that's why we want them there, because we wouldn't need them there. You're correct. Those of you listening, and I encourage them to show this tape to their office managers and their Michelles who does that. And it may be bewildering to you, like, why do I need to do that? Because their insurance only covers 2 crowns a year. What's the big? No. Even if you take insurance, even when we took insurance, we still did comprehensive exams because they would blow through their max, and we would take whatever max they had, which
Right.
what was the same as it was in 1987. I don't even know. Seriously, it's
A lot of them are
embarrassment.
the same as they were in 1980.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Truthfully, I had one today, 1,000 max, same thing.
1,000 max. So we could probably do an eternal amount of these together, because brings up, well, how do you handle the patients? Like you just said to them, you asked about insurance, but I told you that I don't take insurance. And I don't, but I told you at a recent podcast that even if you're not in network with a patient, almost always, if the check goes to you, you can take their insurance. So let me say that again. If you're not in network with many insurances, not all of them, the check will still go to your office and you can see that patient.
Because they have out-of-network benefits.
Because they have out-of-network benefits, correct. And that's a discussion. Where I'm trying to take you with Michele tonight, and as she used to, I didn't get to tell you this, in 23 years ago, I did my first couple of lectures. She was there. My other staff members were there. And we felt so good about it, we took it on the road. So Michele came on the road and lectured, and she has spoken to many of your office managers about all kinds of office issues that we've been able to navigate over the years. But I wanted to start from the beginning because this is where it begins. Right? I mean,
It's the starting point.
yeah, I mean, and then tell them what you do so you understand the screen. We don't always get the person, obviously. I mean, that's what happened today. That's what you were alluding to. I had a new patient come in. Tell me about this. Tell me you can't relate to this, guys.
Quality new patient. Great.
Yes, he was a quality new patient for sure, but he was also had a ravaged smile. The guy needed help. And look, I just did my exam. And by the way, as I always tell you, I tried to dumb it down. I tried to do it in phases. And I could with him because his occlusion had not been affected yet. So I didn't have to do a whole arch. I could piecemeal it in to some degree. But even piecemealing it in, I mean, I don't care if you say. I mean, I don't even know what was that
It
treatment
was
plan?
15,000.
I don't know what to tell
I
you.
also, when I presented it to him, he wasn't one of the sticker shock people.
Yeah.
He seemed fine. And I offered him either financing or our upfront 5% courtesy, and he said, I definitely want that. But I have to talk
I definitely
to my
want
wife.
what?
I want the 5% up front. I'm just going to pay it. but I just have to clear it with my wife. Now, his wife could not come because she runs 2 businesses and is in meetings all day long. And I asked that she could possibly be available by phone in case we wanted to discuss it with her, which we often do. But she was in meetings all day, so.
And that happens to us. So here's my point, our point. If you don't ever ask, like you can't run a Lionhearted case presentation if you never ask for the spouse to be there. Because what will happen to you is what happened to us today. Because sometimes it happens. Sometimes the significant other, sometimes today was the female, couldn't be there. We want her there. If she was there, we would have had case acceptance today.
I think so, definitely.
I would have had a payment of $16,000. And more importantly, the only reason that's important is because they would have kept their future appointments. Mm-hmm. And they would have felt committed. That's what we want them to do. Right. We're dentists. You're a dentist. You have a service to offer. And you want people that want that service to complete their obligation, right?
So once in a while, I will get a driver,
Go ahead.
man or woman, that says, I can't believe you want them there. I make all my own decisions. I never involve him or her with my things. I'm fine, capable of coming on my own. They're usually great. I mean, if they say that to you, it's not common, but it does happen. And we've had many cases that way. And they really do make their own decisions. They don't. And they'll say something like, oh, my husband's completely behind me doing this, but he's a truck driver and he can never come in with me. And we have to go with it then. But if we don't have to go with it, it's better.
Yeah. You and I have talked many, many times about that particular issue. You know, look, Michele knows a lot of things about this process that I don't know, particularly when it comes to payment and how that's handled. And we got to get to that in future podcasts. But I will tell you, and I think you would agree, that a lot of times that even when that happens, when they're a driver, and again, if you want to know about the personality profiles, there's 4 of them: driver, socializer, relator, thinker. And there's a book out on there, many books on them, Non-Manipulative Selling by, I can't think of it, so just Google that. But a lot of times, I think, and I think you would agree, it's because they didn't know the fee would be what the fee is. Right. And I know what I was going to say. I don't know what the magic number is. I don't think there's any way to know. Is it a $10,000 treatment plan? Think about it for a minute, guys. It's important talk. Is it $15,000? How many thousands of dollars will a patient commit to before they need their spouse's, hey, honey, I'm going to do this?
Well, I can tell you in my book there's no magic number. Because when you were out last week and Dr. Tawari picked up that nice case, this woman was so motivated. She brought her mom in to help her. Her mom helped her with some financing.
She was here for that visit?
She was here today to meet you. And people, when they're
she brought her mom, that lady brought her mom?
And her mother helped her with over half of it.
Really?
So, you know, it's how motivated the person is. In her case, she was very motivated. So it really depends on the patient's dental IQ. I don't want to say it like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's IQ. It's how motivated they are to change their lives. And we're running out of time for this week, but I think this is going to work out. Look, I know Michele forever. So
really forever.
So, I mean, I knew her father. She knew my father. We know each other. And well, I know I keep interrupting and I kind of feel bad about that, but I do this more. And I'm anxious for you to just fill them with the knowledge, especially because this will help these guys tremendously, because most people don't have a you know, and these concepts that are part of Lionhearted, getting paid up front, screening, saving cases when you can. That's a person that changes their mind. It happens.
I will say that we do retain most of the new patients that call, because if they don't make it to you, they make it to Dr. Lipsky or Dr. Tawari. We do try to retain as many as possible.
And I didn't rehearse this part with her, but that comes down to me telling you. I tell them long-term success, and I know you'll get this, because we haven't Look, we work our what's off, our butts, in case you're wondering. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to go home, so we don't sit around and talk like this. But I talk about keeping a large nucleus of patients. This are two things I want to close with. And that's the way to do that. In other words, the reason you want a large nucleus, like imagine your practice looking like a map of what a hurricane looks like. And you want it to be big because you never know what's going to spin off the hurricane. It could be somebody that you thought that you didn't do well with. Because in that hurricane of patients are patients that come to you every 6 months and do whatever you say, no matter what it is. Well, there's just not enough of those, right? That's the problem with that section. But you have people in that nucleus that never did anything, but they remembered this visit that we're talking about right now, the visit that Michele is setting up with a screen. And even though, and we have these people, even though they did not commit, they left your office with a good taste in their mouth, not jammed down their throat, not sign here. It was palpable that because when they're in the office, as you're going to find out in later episodes, Michele re-interviews them again, right? So we want your patients to leave, even if they don't accept treatment, feeling good about whatever they saw and heard in your office. That's really, really important because not everybody's doing that, right?
Yes.
And good.
And there's also the aspect of the screen that I didn't mention, where the patient said, I tell them it's 281, they don't have insurance, just one scenario. And they say, well, my credit score isn't the greatest because I've already talked about financing them. But I just want to come in and I'll pay the $281 and we'll see what it's going to be. And I say to the patient, listen, if that's the case, what we need to do is have you bring someone with you, if possible, to help you out, because I don't want you to come in here and waste an hour of your time, pay your $281 and hit a brick wall where you can't proceed, and have Dr. Rasner tell you all the wonderful things that he can do to fix your mouth and not be able to proceed. So that's another story there that's important.
No, it is important. So what basically recapitulate is when they indicate that money's an issue, you're in bad practice long enough, you're going to come across a lot of scenarios. And one might be the patient is honest enough on the phone at that screen to tell you that they're not sure they can even afford you.
Well, one of the ways I approach that to get them to tell me is I say, just so you know, because they've told me they have major issues.
Okay.
We do have a financing option. We use 2 different companies. It works very well. I use a long-term plan so that you can have a low monthly payment, pay it off sooner, no prepayment penalty. And magic words, the only thing you need for that is a good credit score or a positive credit score. And I stop. And then they'll answer me, oh, that's no problem. Or they'll say, like a woman said to me today, well, that's going to be a problem. So then you know where to take it from there.
Okay.
You know.
Well, listen, guys, it's been longer than I like to go. It's 34 minutes, and I know you don't want to hear from me longer than that per week. Now, maybe you feel differently. This is what I like you to do. Send us emails, or me. Can I email you? You know your email address?
Yes.
I don't.
It's Michele with one L, Michele at Pearl, Pearl Smiles with an S.com. Michele at pearlsmiles.com.
That's cool. Watch you get a bomb of mails and I get nothing. It's fine. Look, this is different for us. We worked all day today, as you can see. We're both on our stuff. And we're in my private office. And I expect these to get even better. I'll try to shut up more. I'm trying to get Michele to tell you as much, because she's amazing. She could write a book called, I think literally, the $40 million case acceptance plan, meaning that's how much you've treatment planned in your life. And not by jamming it down people's throats.
Definitely not.
It's really important.
Yeah.
It's, we're in a small rural area, 50 minutes outside of Philadelphia. We grew up here. So when Michelle, I don't live in this direct vicinity. I live 50 minutes from here, but Michelle goes out to dinner. It's right here in this community with her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And we want people to respect us, and we want to treat them like friends. And we happen to offer a product. That product is dentistry, and we think we can offer it better than any other place that can get it. And that's what you want to emulate as well. And you should be proud of that.
And I do carry my business cards wherever I go.
Yeah. So it's hard to find a Michelle, trust me, but they're out there, and you got to spend the time so they understand your philosophy of your Lionhearted practice. We'll see you next week. I'm not sure I can get her every week for a while, but I'm going to leave my camera in here, and hopefully we can do one next week.
Okay.
See you guys next week.
You.
Thank you.